everybody. Welcome back to a album breakdown with Rogan and Dason. Rogan and Dason will be talking about another song from Rogan's latest EP, and I will be here to rein them in if they get too technical. So, boys, take her away.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so we're looking at Tailwind in this session, which is one of the shortest songs that I've ever written, along with one of the most stripped down. There's only like 5 parts. There's 2 voices, guitars, bass, drums, and piano, so 6 parts. And that's pretty much it. So this will be probably a shorter video. We don't have as much material to cover as like the 67 tracks that are in Octo's song.
We only have like 38 tracks here. Nowhere near as many. Most of those are like drums.
If this is the shortest song you've ever written, then what's the longest song?
Ooh, that's coming way down the line. I think Dason's played half of it already. and that's a good like 15 minutes, so
That's sweet.
All right, well let's get into it then. So I think the majority of the arrangement is like all in already in the first section of the song there.
Can I just say Anna has a beautiful voice?
Yes.
Yeah, she has a great singing voice.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
that's something we should talk about definitely too. So this is where Wings and Letters from a Lost Soul, they are instrumentals and sort of an opener to the entire grand concept. I wrote them sort of as an overture of the feelings that are going to be represented all throughout the Letters from a Lost Soul arc and the Atlas Lost arc. But this is really delving into now more of the character creation, the development of those characters. So Tailwind is a communication back and forth through letters from Damian to his wife Hope, and their daughter Cassidy, while he is away working on a failing space program that the world just doesn't see the need for anymore. And he's dealing with these feelings of he feels what he's doing is important, but he also has to deal with the fact that he is a long ways away from his family and doesn't get to see them in person. And that's really what a lot of this whole album is about. So Anna plays Hope, who is the wife, and I have some brief moments in here as Damian and the nightmare, which is the anxieties that Damian is feeling, represented as a separate character part. Anna Draper is playing Hope, and I met her in music school, and she is an actual she graduated from the voice program just this past year.
Right on. Yeah, her vocals are really cool on this song. Definitely a really great singer.
Yeah, very professional. I really like what she does with Tailwind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're gonna have more of her on this upcoming album, so that'll be great. Continuing the role.
Sweet.
We'll have to get her in one of these interviews.
Yeah. At some point, definitely. Yeah, maybe we can do like a reflection or something.
So drums, I won't go too much into. If you haven't seen the video on Wings already, go watch that, because there's a pretty in-depth look at what we recorded the drums with and how they are processed. And it's mostly the same drum mix here. Bass is actually fairly different in that I think all the bass in this song was done with a real bass amp. It wasn't done with plugins like it was on the other two songs. Yeah, that's definitely my bass amp that I used to have. It was an Ampeg Portaflex. Let me turn off all the bass processing. So this was Rogan, your bass, which is the Warwick Corvette, going into an Aguilar Aggro, which is like a bass kind of fuzz distortion pedal, going into an Ampeg Portaflex head, not the old tube ones, it was one of the new solid state ones, going into I think it was either a 2x12 or a 2x10 Portaflex cabinet. So this is the raw sound of the bass. And similar to the last song, you double tracked bass for this. So I did a similar thing where I split the bass between the high end and the low end, and the high end stayed stereo, but the low end stayed mono. So here's like the bass low track. Similar kind of processing as the last one. I'm just filtering out everything except the low end and compressing it a bunch to make it stay consistent. For the amped tracks, I've got this EQ, which is really cleaning up a lot of the mid-range, taking out the low end because I have the low end track to handle that stuff, cutting out some harshness in the high mids. And then I also did some EQ, looks like on the bass bus, which has both the bass low and the bass high tracks, which is the EQ. There it is. Just dipping out something that must have sounded harsh around 4K, and then a limiter to kind of do some final dynamic taming. So this is a different bass tone on this song, so that's how the bass was mixed. Guitar-wise, there's a lot less guitar than there was in the last song we looked at too. There's just one rhythm part and a clean part in the middle. The rhythm part here. Alright, so kind of similar tone, but less gain as to what's on the rest of the EP. But really similar signal chain. You've got like this Kazrog vintage driver, which is kind of a tube screamer emulation, going into this Thermonic Psycho C, which is kind of your EVH 5150. But I've got it on the crunch channel instead of the lead channel. And it's a more mid-range forward sound because we don't have as many things in the song competing for that room in the mid-range, so you can kind of have the guitar more forward that way. And same impulse response as I think was on the other songs. It's a 4x12 Mesa straight with V60s with a Sennheiser 421 on it. It's an own hammer impulse. They make great IRs. And then on the actual guitar bus, I think all my plugins are showing up at the very bottom of my screen today for some reason. Just kind of cutting a couple of these like high mid frequency, kind of ringy frequencies, can show you what I mean by that if I turn one of these up. I don't really add anything, they're just kind of ringing out there, so clean those up. We've got a limiter to kind of control the dynamics a bit. Just even everything out and keep the guitar in kind of the same place throughout the song. I've got my favorite EQ at the time, this API EQ again. Boosting a bit of low end, cutting a bit of the mids, and then boosting a bunch of 3K and 10K to brighten it up. If I turn this off. I'll turn it on. Just kind of pushes the guitars forward a little bit. Gives them more bite. Also got Izotope Vinyl, which is in all these kind of interlude sections or the intro where there's that like lo-fi radio effect. This is how we did that. And then like around here I think it turns off.
Did you have something similar on the voice part
Yeah,
as well?
I think anywhere where you wanted me to put a radio effect in, I just used Izotope Vinyl on this setting, which is, I mean, the settings are kind of not very descriptive, but it's 1930 and whatever this second warp model down is. This is a free plugin too, so it's handy for like kind of that lo-fi effect wherever I need it. Let me move somewhere else in the song so we're not hearing all that tape static. So that's the guitar tone.
Oh, and for this track too, this was the only track I used my then Fender Deluxe Stratocaster from Mexico.
Oh, right.
And that's the only guitar I used on this track, and I didn't use it anywhere else on
Right
the
on.
EP. So everything else is my Ibanez RGD 7.
you get it?
This was the,
Yeah.
Did you get it in Mexico?
No, it's just the factory that it came from. It's Fender's like mid-tier series like models. So they all sort of come from
What made you decide to use
Mexico.
just that guitar on just the first track and not on the rest of them?
So just on this track, this one was written. This is sort of my ode to math rock. This piece, and so I used like a drop D tuning on a
Single
6
coils.
string, and the single coils. Yeah, so that's what this did, and going back to that, like the bass being recorded on like an actual amp too, like that is that I think that really like added more to like the rawness of the track, because this was supposed to be like a very like stripped down sort of old rock sort of sound, and the Fender and with the single coil pickups definitely added to that
Totally.
tone as well. But I don't know if we talked about this on the last one for Wings, but the process that Dason and I do is I record all of the DI for the guitars and bass and vocals and everything. And the DI is just the complete clean pass through.
just like the raw sound
for
of the
those
guitar
tracks,
straight
and then
into
I
your
edit
computer,
them
basically.
and then I edit it and send it off to Dason, and he puts all of the effects or like reamps and all the EQ and stuff on it.
This project in particular went through a lot of kind of reamping and me testing stuff out. I think I did 2 or 3 sessions where I tried to reamp stuff, most of the guitar with a real amp, and I was just never happy with it. And so I tried some different VSTs until I found something that seemed to work for the songs. Okay,
Well-
so that's... Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, well, I really like the sound that you came out with, and based on what you're saying you were going for, I think you really captured that. So, good job, guys.
Thanks.
So,
Yeah, there's some cool guitar tones on here. I'm happy with how it turned out in the end, even if it took a while to get there. Okay, next thing I have here is piano, which I didn't bother renaming. It's just called Contact 501. Just some EQ, just a little bit of EQ on this. Looks like I'm bringing the mids up.
So I think this is the native instruments, the gentleman piano.
That's like an
I
upright
believe.
piano, but not a grand piano, right?
No, the gentleman is a baby grand, I believe.
Baby grand, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's just the sample of, I don't know, some piano in a studio somewhere, and you can like change the room reverb, the size of the room and stuff,
right.
And everything. So I think I just sort of, I think I have it in a half open position, and then just a little bit of, I think I have it in a small room.
That makes sense. It's like very like snappy,
for the natural
responsive
reverb.
sound.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like super big and open the way you might expect a grand to sound. Yeah, the only processing I really did is I boosted the high end a bit, boosted some mids, which is probably, it wasn't popping out enough in the mix, so the mids kind of just make your ears kind of notice it more. We're kind of sensitive to the mid-range frequencies, and I also did some pretty aggressive notches to get rid of some ringy frequencies. Yeah, I can see why those probably bothered me at the time.
I'm glad you took them out. They made my skin crawl.
Yeah, that kind of stuff annoys me. You'll see me get rid of that kind of stuff. I'm less aggressive now than I was probably 2 years ago. I'm a little bit, I think my monitors 2 years ago were probably my PreSonus ones, which were kind of harsh sounding anyways. So that stuff would like bother me even more than it does now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's piano.
Yeah. And I didn't do really any automation or anything on this in terms of like attack or whatever.
Right.
On the keys, because it was going to be like fairly in the background anyways, and just sort of coloring the sound of the song. So yeah, it's just kind of like straight wham on the keyboard the entire time, like Elton John style.
Maybe you write out a Guitar Pro. Like the attack is always really high,
Yeah.
I find. That's punchy. You kind of need that though for something to come through in a mixer's distorted guitar and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So now I think we're in vocal land, eh? Oh, here's all of our static noise back. So let's look at Anna's vocals. Might be nicer to actually look at them in a place where there isn't all that background noise.
You walk beside me, no longer within reach. The weary rays of dawn crumble under the touch of your feet. And as they land...
And I guess before I forget to mention, the first thing I notice here is that there's a lot of automation on the vocals. Like here. This is a send level for the delay. So I wanted certain words to kind of pop out and for a delay to like fill in the space and the pauses in inner singing. So I automated a delay send up on certain words.
Touch of your feet, and as they land on untouched soil, never to leave a mark. You walk beside me.
Then there's also a bunch of volume automation going down here on this VCA channel, just to kind of even out her performance, make it equally as present in the song at any point in time, without like over compressing her voice. As far as the actual plug-in chain on her voice, so I've got two tracks here. I've got a main and a double. On the main, there's some EQ, kind of just taking out some of the low end, cleaning up some more whistly frequencies and the high mids. I've got this Waves V comp doing, let's see.
Touch of your feet, and as they land on untouched,
like 3 to 6 decibels of gain reduction. It's a really fast compressor, so it kind of just captures those transients and clamps them down. I think it's a copy of like a Neve 2252 or 2254 or something like that. Really fast FET compressor. After that I've got more compression, but this is the slower compressor just to even things out a bit more.
Touch of your feet, and as they land on untouched soil, never to leave a...
Yeah, another few decibels of compression there with this Klanghelm MJUC Junior. And then I'm even more compression apparently. With
Marvel
this,
Comic Universe Junior.
yes, Marvel Junior Universe Comic Junior. It's a free plugin too, so I like this compressor. I use it quite a bit. This L1 by Waves just to get like probably catch some of those peaks that still made it through the first two compressors.
Touch of your feet, and as they land on untouched soil, never to...
Yeah, she's a very dynamic singer, so I didn't want to like, if you do too much compression with just one compressor, I find it sounds more obvious, so I split it amongst the two compressors and the limiter so that it'd be more transparent, but it would also kind of level things out in the mix. We got a de-esser.
Touch of your feet, and as they...
It's doing what it sounds like it's doing. It's just knocking down some of those S's so that the vocals aren't too sibilant.
Yeah.
We've got another EQ here after all of that, mostly just to boost mid-range and boost a little bit of like the top end sheen. I turn that off.
Touch of your feet, and as they land on untouched soil, never to leave a mark.
Kind of just makes it sound a bit more close and right in your ears. It brings it forward in the mix. And what do I have here? And then I have Izotope Vinyl just for some of those lo-fi kind of sections, like the beginning, and I think there's a section in the middle where this would probably turn on. It's just being automated on and off for those. For the double, let's talk sends, lots of sends. I've got an eighth note delay, a half note delay, a quarter note delay, and some reverb. And like we were seeing before, I think it was the half note delay where I would automate it up for certain words to kind of make them pop more. And then on the double, I just have the reverb, which is just Waves little, or not Waves, Soundtoys little plate. It's a really simple, nice sounding reverb. Let's see what I have on the double. We'll just solo the double. I've got Waves doubler on it because I think this double track was really, it was just one additional performance. There's like 2 performances in total. Usually for vocal doubles, I like them to be stereo and spread out to kind of the sides so that they're not living in the same space that the mono panned center lead vocal is, if that makes sense. I think I have to turn all these other plugins off, but I can show you what doubler is doing. This is with it off.
Touch of your feet, as they land on untouched soil, never to leave a mark.
On its own, that sounds really aggressive. It sounds really chorusy, but in the context of a mix, it works. It's introducing modulation and pitch changes between the left side and the right side to make it sound like it's 2 performances instead of 1. I've also got, this is the same EQ as on the main vocal, just to pull out some low end and clean up some of the mid-range. Same V-comp going into MJUC Junior. I didn't bother with the limiter on this one because I didn't need it to be quite as upfront in the mix. So it just goes straight to the de-esser. And then here's Izotope Vinyl, which gets automated on for those lo-fi parts. That's all the processing on Anna's vocals. Let's find a section maybe with some of your vocals, Rogan.
Oh, right. Yeah, because I have the short section of cleans and then a short section of harshes.
Yeah. Looks like the harshes are first. Let's we can listen to the whole mix there and then we can look at what's going on with your vocals. Actually no, this is the cleans. My bad.
Someday, where all your dreams have taken you away.
Wait, before I go any further with this, you want to talk a bit about what mic you used for vocal recording, Rogan, and kind of what the vocal recording setup was?
So so all of this was through the Slate VMS M1 a microphone, and that's essentially it's a virtual microphone that it's a complete pass through to Slate's own preamp that powers it, and that preamp is a completely clean pass through into the DAW, where there are seven different analog microphones that are modeled for those sounds. And I think I only used the I can't remember what it was. It was more of a modern mic. There was a couple that were like really sort of gritty sort of 60s modeled microphones. Right. And I played around with those for this one, for that raw feel, but I think I ended up going for the more modern one.
That'd be like, what, a U87 or something?
I am not sure. I think I was looking at the 67 for more of the gritty. Right. Then I didn't end up using that one.
67 is it's kind of a cool sounding mic. It's really bright, really in your face. Okay, so let's take a look. So these are lo-fi sounding, so I'm assuming there's Izotope Vinyl on them, which there are. So that's at the end of the chain. I think we're going to see a really similar setup here as to what was on Anna's vocals. Got an EQ that's taking out some of the low end and notching out a frequency in the high mid range. Yeah, just something in the microphone or the microphone model that was resonant. Using V-comp. And a little bit more aggressive with the compression there. It's like hitting 12 sometimes. Also using this MJUC Junior. Knocking off another few decibels. Got the limiter. You can see that one's only really like at the beginning of phrases, kind of when you have a lot of air coming out all at once, like the very beginning of words. Just trimming that down, but it's not doing a whole lot other than that. De-esser just to reduce some of the sibilance, and then Izotope Vinyl. There's a double here as well. I've got the same kind of EQ. I've got same kind of doubler setting as was on Anna's vocals. V-comp. This guy for some slower compression, a de-esser, and Izotope Vinyl. So that's the vocals and the bridge. And then while we're at the bridge, we might as well talk about that bridge guitar as well. This thing. So this is one of the few guitar parts that I reamped with an actual amp that we actually kept. This is going through my Mesa Boogie Mark V on the clean channel. This sounds like it's just an SM57 on it. For EQ, let's take vinyl off for a second here. Really simple EQ, just rolling off the low end, rolling off a little bit of the high end, knocking down some of these like mid-range resonances, and then Izotope Vinyl to get the lo-fi effect. So let's see. We can talk, I think it looks like I did something different for bass here as well. Where is it? Interesting. That sounds distorted to me. But it's called clean bass. There's, yeah, I don't know. I don't know why that sounds distorted.
Might be the Warwick too. The Warwick has a little bit of a punch to it.
I lost. There we go. Yeah, it could be that. It could be that I actually reamped it through the amp and then put it through some other things afterwards.
Oh, then yeah.
Let me see what the waveform looks like. See, yeah, it says it's the reamp one. So yeah, that's just the reamp going through the dark glass pedal again. I can't remember what my reasoning for doing that would have been, because essentially you have like a bass amp going through another bass amp, but it sounded good in context. So that's the clean bass kind of. I just took one of the bass tracks, so it wouldn't be stereo in that part. With the goal being that it kind of mix gets a little bit narrower and quieter and lo-fi sounding here, so that it'll sound bigger when it comes in afterwards. Okay, sweet. So you've got some vocal harmonies here too.
Yeah.
So you sent me 2 takes of that. So I think I just took one pandit left, took the other pandit right. Very simple signal chain, same EQ as was on your other vocals. Just using a limiter to kind of pin them in place. And then the de-esser, and I've got a half note delay, some reverb, and a quarter note delay on that. And then right after that is this the screamy vocals. Nice. Those are gnarlier than I remember.
The screamy vocals by themselves is kind of uncanny sounding. It's like I should go help that person.
Let's see what's going on here.
Yeah, this wasn't these harsh vocal parts were sort of an interesting thought of mine for this particular track, because this is the introduction of the nightmare, which is like the culmination of Damian's anxieties. So, and like going forward, you'll hear the nightmare played by different people as well, for like whose perspective or who he's seeing within his dream to do that. But yeah, like I was thinking, okay, this is sort of a very like upbeat, sort of catchy poppy song. And to like just throw that anxiety in there really like pushes that feeling of like there's something just below the surface in like this in the narrative.
Yeah, you really captured that anxiety feeling too, because like I was saying, I felt like I needed to go help that person, and I think it's that like tenseness and anxiousness that makes me feel that way. So nice.
And then you also wanted this to sound lo-fi, even though it wasn't like a lo-fi section of the song. Was there an artistic reason for that?
So, and that was again because it's more supposed to be sort of just a portrayal of what's happening in his consciousness, like so it's like not quite at the forefront of what's happening, but that anxiety is definitely lurking there, and that works within that broad section where like everything seems to be okay, and then this is just like lurking up in the background, and then that really comes out when there's that solo section that's not lo-fi in Octosun that we'll get to in the next video.
I mean, mixed chain. Okay, so there was something I really didn't like there. I have to hear this now. Because that's a 24 decibel cut somewhere. Let's see, what was this? Yeah, it's totally like just someone like whistling in the background. That's funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, I nuked that frequency and a couple of other kind of harsh frequencies. I mean, harsh vocals like this tend to sound a bit abrasive in the mid-range, so you have to do some work to clean them up to sort of get them to fit into a mix. So that's what this EQ is doing. Got a limiter here. Looks like that's the only compression going on. These were pretty consistent anyways. So there wasn't a need for a whole lot of compression. Got a de-esser after that. I've got soft tube saturation knob, which is kind of a cool plugin for adding very analog sounding distortion. It kind of reminds me of when you drive a microphone preamp that has like a transformer based microphone preamp a bit hard, and it breaks up a little bit. So I like this for kind of adding a bit of grit and smoothing things out a bit.
For some reason, I thought you were going to say it reminds you of when you drive a race car, and I feel like that would have been an apt analogy.
Because it's No, this is a bit more subtle than that. I can turn it on and off. Kind of adds a little bit of thickness.
Yeah, it adds that little bit.
It sounds less harsh once. Yeah, yeah, it's subtle. I don't have it cranked, but it sounds less harsh too afterwards, which distortion can do. It kind of evens out some of those like weird spiky frequencies. More EQ. After that, there's probably a little like this. That definitely sounds like something the distortion from the last plugin introduced that I wanted to get rid of. And then I'm also boosting the top end a bit to make it sound a bit closer, give it a bit more of a breathy feel. And then the last one here is Izotope Vinyl to give it that lo-fi effect. And there's also a double of this. Oh, and sends. Before I forget to talk about the sends, you got a 1/4 inch delay, this is like the same instance of little plate across everything. I have one channel with this, one auxiliary channel with this plugin on it, and I've just been sending all these vocals to that channel, as well as an 1/8 note delay and like a really tiny amount of a 1/2 note delay. That might get automated up. Yeah, that totally gets automated up on this last note. Which is what lets it kind of ring out longer. So that's the whole scream main. The double, I didn't use Waves Doubler, interestingly enough. I used a chorus plugin, but with the stereo width on full spread, so it's probably doing something kind of similar to what Waves Doubler is doing. It might just be like less. It's a more subtle effect. I think probably Waves Doubler can sound kind of funny sometimes. I imagine if there was too much like pitch shifting going on, it would have sounded kind of funny on harsh vocals like that where there isn't a super defined note to begin with. This EQ is same EQ as on the other channel, same limiter setting, same de-esser, same saturation knob. Same, oops, let me turn these back on. Not same EQ. I didn't boost the top end here because I didn't want to bring the double forward. I wanted to leave the main one. It's kind of what you would hear more. And then Izotope Vinyl for that lo-fi effect. So that's everything. No, that's not everything in vocal end because there's also a harmony.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, I always see videos on the internet that are like lo-fi hip-hop vibes to study, chill, and relax to, but I don't know what lo-fi means.
I mean, lo-fi is low fidelity. So, I guess the analogy I would have is, this isn't a perfect analogy, but if you have like a computer monitor and it has a high resolution, it has more pixels, and if it has a lower resolution, it has less pixels. So a monitor of less pixels would be kind of like a low fidelity monitor or a lo-fi monitor. In audio, it's kind of different because it's not pixels that are going down, but it kind of refers to a lot of old analog vintage audio equipment where you don't hear the extension into the higher frequency ranges and the lower frequency ranges. And so that's kind of what that plugin does. Let me go back to that. I don't know if I've ever AV'd it on and off. So when you turn it on, you lose a lot of the high end, a lot of the low end. And so it sounds like an older, less refined piece of audio technology that can't recreate those frequencies at the higher and lower end of the spectrum, hence why it would be called like low fidelity. That's where the lo-fi term comes from. The funny thing about all those lo-fi hip-hop beats is it's like a lo-fi piano, but that's the only thing lo-fi about it.
It's like, sometimes you want a McDonald's burger, and sometimes you want like a smash burger. And the McDonald's burger, it's just the basics, but sometimes you might really crave it. It doesn't mean it's worse. It just means it's what you wanted in that particular moment.
Yeah, it's not worse. It's kind of just like less full. You're getting less of the frequency ranges coming through.
Yes, less vitamins and nutrients in that McDonald's burger. Thanks for explaining that.
No, for sure. These are things I never really think about. I just kind of take them as is because I hear them all the time. Okay, lost vocal thing. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
I feel like I should have Googled that a long time ago because it's been a trend for a while.
All right, there's Izotope Vinyl again. Did we? Oh, that's the double, that's why. I was like, I don't think we did lo-fi on the harmony. Here's the harmony. So I'm using the stereo chorus here. I think because the harmony is there's only one track of this, I didn't want to use doubler on this because it's not a subtle effect, at least the way I was using it in the song. And I didn't want to like make the harmony, which is supposed to be somewhat up front in the mix, sound all warped like that. So I used the chorus to kind of get some of that width.
Until we meet again, soaring.
We hear these in context too.
Until we meet again, soaring ever higher. I won't back down until the end, searching out for you.
Is this where she gets higher here, right?
Holding out your hand, forever watching from above. Until we meet again, reaching out to claim the sun.
Yeah, she has a really impressive vocal range. So in terms of plugins on this, it looks like I, for the most part, did kind of similar things to what was on her main vocal parts. Some EQ to take out the low end, clean up the mids, V-comp again, this MJUC Junior again, and then a de-esser. And then there's probably some delay sends and stuff on it. Let me see. I don't know. Just some reverb, no delay, I guess. There was probably enough delay on her other vocals. I didn't really feel like it needed more delay. So that is all the vocals in the song. Yeah. I think this song had the most vocals, even though it had the simplest arrangement, right?
Yeah, because I guess Octosun has a lot of instrumental parts.
Yeah, Octosun might have the same amount of vocals, actually. Because I think it has...
Yeah, so interesting thing about those harmonies at the end is that was kind of a last-minute thing that Anna and I threw together in the studio, because I was kind of like going back and forth between whether I wanted something more full just to like really add punch to that very the very end of the song there. So I didn't record. So what I did for her vocals is I recorded samples to send to her, and then she learned the tracks and did a bit of her own like character and stuff into that, and fooling around with her own lines and ornaments and stuff. But I never recorded anything for those harmonies. Yeah. Well, yeah, on the spot we sort of figured out, okay, what sort of range do we want? And then I had the idea of like, I think it might be a fifth there for the first ones, and then she goes up to the octave for for the
Right.
the last half of that end chorus. But yeah, I was like flipping back and forth between whether I wanted them in there or whether I didn't, and just wanted to stay sort of the same. And then I ended up thinking, just while she was in the studio, that yeah, we can build that up, especially with like that sharp cutoff right at the end.
Yeah, it brings a lot of energy.
It kind of works better to build that energy right up to the end.
That's a good addition. It adds a lot to the end of things. It makes it very memorable.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that like octave harmony at the end. It's like very intense. Okay, last thing, because I think I did this in Wings too, maybe, but I don't think we talked about it. Is I'm also automating, and there's lots of automation of like a bunch of different stuff. If you look at my sessions, vocals are being automated all over the place.
What is being automated?
So automation is when you're taking a parameter of something like volume or a certain knob in one of the effects and having it change in the middle of the song. Like here's where's that, like we did that filter sweep on the guitar. You can kind of see it visually there. Where does that happen though? Here. Yeah, let me find. Is this the one doing it? You can kind of see how the plugin parameter is like changing because I wrote automation for it.
Yeah, gotcha.
So it's called automation because back when like everyone was working on consoles, if you wanted to do something like that, you had to have someone like physically turn knobs in real time on the console or on whatever effects unit they were using. And then I think somewhere, I'm not the most knowledgeable, I think it was around the 80s, you started to have systems where consoles could remember, like if you were changing the volumes of certain channels, you could record the movements you're doing on the channel faders and it would play them back in time with the song. So it was automating those fader movements for you. And that's where the term automation comes from, because it's doing it itself. It's not a person moving the faders each time they want to print a mix, which is what you did before.
No,
Or
yeah,
you get the band usually. Have everyone has, two hands. You get everyone to have their hands on a few faders and they would all push things up and down as the song played. So you'd have like issues where like, the bass player keeps pushing his bass fader up to make the bass louder as the song plays, and like everyone in the band is doing that.
Oh my gosh. Sounds like high school. No, that makes total sense though, because like it does it automatically. You don't have to do it manually. I was just wondering like
Right.
what piece
Yeah.
was automatic, so thanks for sharing that with me.
No, for sure. So yeah, to kind of go back to what exactly I automated here, make this bigger, or not, if it won't let me. Shit, there we go. Is I just turn the whole song up sometimes, or the whole song down. It's like here in this, right before the chorus. Or that instrumental break. But I wanted that to hit a bit harder than the section before it, so the whole kind of master fader just goes up by a decibel, and then comes down. You can see throughout the song I'm pushing it up and down. Just a way to like, I push it up a lot here. Let's see, 1.7 dB here. Just kind of a way, like when the song is a bit louder in certain sections, it feels louder, which it kind of just a way to emphasize the energy of the songwriting in certain places by making it louder or quieter. And this is, of course, all the mastering was done in a different Studio One project, so that would be like pushing a decibel before the mastering process, so any mastering compressors and stuff that I used just got hit a bit harder in those sections. I think that's all the mix stuff in this song. Did I miss anything, Rogan?
I don't think so. It's pretty straightforward, this one.
Yeah, this one was a simpler arrangement. There's way more automation, though, which is funny. I don't know if it actually took me any less time to mix. because it looks like I was going through and just writing a bunch of automation to, I guess because in like your other songs on the CP, the arrangement kind of does a lot of the work of making certain sections feel bigger than other sections. But since I didn't have a million tracks to kind of use to build the dynamic story, I went and automated a bunch of stuff to do that instead. Sweet. This is my favorite one on the EP, I think. Both to work on and both kind of like to just listen after it's done now.
Yeah, same here.
It's a good song. You guys did a good job. Well, thanks for sharing about the breakdown of Tailwind, and I guess we'll move on to our next segment in another video. So keep an eye out for that, where we will break down. I forget what song we're on. Octo-san, thank you. It's like you just said it.
Holding out your hand, forever watching from above, until